Hello and welcome to another Beer Clipper video. This video is going to follow me as I build my entry for the Encounter Terrain 10x10 challenge for October, and the theme is Between Wars, which really has got my mind whirring. So I've come up with two ideas and I'm going to try and do both. I'm not sure which one I'm going to enter. Winning isn't the point. Taking part is the fun part, and I want to make both things. And I think this is going to kick off maybe a little bit of a series for me, as I'm going to do the build this month and maybe next month, or we'll just see, but maybe a few months in a row, which is going to be terrain for chain of command, so about 20mm scale, 172 scale, around that area, and will be for World War II, which obviously fits in with the theme. So the ideas I've got, two ideas I've got, one of them is going to be a cafe scene or a street scene, which will have some people sitting playing chess or sitting there playing cards at a table, and there will be obviously veterans or whatever after Between Wars. So that's the one idea. And the second idea is that I will do a tank park. Now I might do a few of these, and I'm going to put them onto onto some tiles. But what I'll do is I'll point the camera down and show you what my idea is. We'll get the starting picture done as well. Yeah, then we'll crack on. So I hope you enjoy the video. Let me know in the comments below, and let's see how all this turns out. So the new Encounter Terrain build. I'm going to be making use of my terrain tile systems, which is what's really inspired me here. I've had a really good fun build over the last year doing things for the Encounter Challenge, but I think I want to make actually playable terrain, and these are really, really good, and I have plans for using these for chain of command. And so what I'm going to do is two ideas. The first idea is, as I've said in the intro, is a street scene. So it'll be like a street cafe, so it'll probably be like a town square sort of idea, and we'll have some people sat around drinking coffee and playing cards. Potentially some of them might be have missing limbs and what have you, and that will be them resting between wars. The second idea will maybe take up 2 or 3 of these 10x10s, which is what this is, the 10x10 tile. Well, that's the starting item. And I'm actually, the printer is about to start whirring. It's going to be printing out the miniatures for the sitting, and also it's going to be printing out a bunch of tanks. And what I'm going to do is some tanks parked up, and I might do some like brewed up tanks or blown up tanks, and some that are being maintained or whatever. So those are my two ideas. Which I enter, I'm not sure, but the idea is to build up some terrain because I really, really want to play Chain of Command, and I haven't yet. And if I do this, it might push me to do it. So yeah, and I'm also quite excited to get some use out of these. I've done stuff with them before, but not very much. So it's going to be good fun to make use of the terrain tile system. I think it's fantastic. I just haven't got around to using it. So there we are. So printer's going to go. When I've got everything printed out, I'll come back and we'll start the build. So it'll probably take me a couple of days to get things printed. But after that, hopefully it'll be a relatively quick build. But yeah, good to get started. That's the first set of files printed out, and they've come out absolutely beautifully. I'm so impressed with those. And also I managed to get a couple of seated people printed also. So there's a little bit of work to do on this to make sure that the turrets fit without getting stuck, because I do want them to still be able to rotate. My thinking as I do this more and more is that I might even paint these up a bit and have them removable from the tank park, so that I can have an empty tank park, or have these actually used for maybe for water tanker or something like that, which would be quite cool, because they're really beautiful miniatures and they printed up really, really nicely. So what I'm going to do now is get that sanding down. If you're ever sanding anything like this, then you need to absolutely make sure that you wear a mask. And all I'll do for this is just get some sandpaper and just like rotate the turret that goes into the body in the sandpaper, just to kind of thin it down, because it expands a little bit when it's curing basically. And then I'm going to prime these and paint these up very basically, and get that done. So I'm about to do that now, and once I've got these primed and painted, I'll start to do the bases, and I'll probably crack on with those while these are being painted. So yeah, it's nice to be making a start. Obviously this is a very short-term project, very quick, not very much time, so I've got to crack on, but that's what the benefit of this challenge is. It encourages you to think and encourages you to build, and not just like stick things in the back burner. we have some more tanks and vehicles printed out. Of course, most of these are not going to fit onto one little 10 by 10. If we have a look, they're clearly not. And the other thing I've realised is I'm printing them out at 15mm, which is not the scale I do for Chain of Command, which is a bit annoying. But it is what it is. I'll continue at this with these models, but I'll probably print more of these out when I do some more slightly bigger. So I might, I'm not sure. I'm a bit annoyed at myself, but yeah, you know, they're definitely smaller than the 20mm or the 1/72 scale, 1/76 scale that I've been using, because they're at 1/100 scale, and it even said it on the file. So there we are. I'm just an idiot sometimes, but they're going to go down and get painted. I've started painting the previous batch. I'll go and prime these now and start painting them up. Hopefully it won't take very long. I don't need to get them all finished, obviously, because only one of them is going to go on one of the dioramas, if that's the one I keep. Because I'm thinking more and more that I'm going to go for the cafe scene first. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a facade for a cafe, because what I'm thinking is that I can have some of these as a little street that can go that can be designed to go at the back of the board, so it will be like a low relief building. If you're in model railways, you'll know that. So I'm going to do like a low relief building that's going to be at the back, and then I will do a cobblestone courtyard with a little wall around it, and that'll be where they'll be sitting. I do have a picture actually which inspired this, and if I can remember to find it, and if I can find it, which isn't a promise because I have many tens of thousands of pictures, I'll put it on the screen. Basically, I was in a town near here, and we were watching a group of people, a group of men playing checkers, I think they were playing, I can't remember, but they're playing a board game, and it was just lovely to watch them, and it was a lovely town. We nearly moved there, but decided to didn't end up buying near there, but we still like to go to that town. But yeah, so I do have a kind of real life inspiration in mind as well. So anyway, I'm going to get my materials together and start this low relief building, and I'll bring you along for how I'm going to do that. Okay, so here we have a Sarissa building that is glued to one of these terrain tile systems, and you can see just how nicely they do tessellate. Really cool. This will have to be done at some point. Been probably 2 years since I glued this down to this base, and it's just not been looked at. But the reason I've got it is for scale and to show just how badly out of scale the tanks are. Yeah, they need to be bigger, don't they? Look at the little heads. Yeah, not right. Anyway, I'm going to stop beating myself up about that now. This is going to give me the scale, and it's going to help me to come up with the layout that I want. I'm going to make use of the mounting of the artist's mounting board, and my plan is, and this might work or might not, my plan is to roughly offer that up and see how high 2 stories are, and also potentially mark in where the first story is, and then mark how far along the back it goes, and then cut that square out, and that can then act, oh, the roof fell off, that can then act as my template for where I'm going to draw on. And I'm just literally going to do this with with small bits of card. I have some spare of these knocking around somewhere, so I'll be able to do make this using some of the offcuts and spares I've got from other MDF kits, and just literally pen and paint. So I'm going to get that cut out now. I will use a knife, not scissors, because scissors bend cardboard. A knife you can score through, and mock up, roughly sketch up what the shape's going to be. Big window, because this is going to be a cafe, remember, with a door on one side and then a couple of windows at the top is my idea. And once I've got that done, I'll bring you back, because we're going to glue it down, and I'll show you how I'm going to mount this so that it's stable. And yeah, then I can start to work on the actual front, which is going to be, as I've said, is going to be a cobblestone. So yeah, let's get drawing and cutting. First of all, I've done the 3D low relief. As you can see, how I've done that is I've basically cut an extra centimetre, scored through, folded it, and that will now be able to glue in very nicely there and stand up. And I will probably put a 90-degree, so put a little, cut a corner out of the card, stick it in there so that it has some kind of, so it's actually at 90 degrees. So that's that. What I then did is I went looking for my spares of these, and I found that I actually only have one, which isn't really enough. But then I remembered And this is going to be really cool because I wanted to do these for a while. I remembered that I had, and I bought, and I've got these scale scenes, which are printable textures and what have you. And you get 4 sheets, including some templates, which I'm not going to use, and some other stuff, which I might. But on that template, you get a sheet, which is actually bricks. And very cool and interestingly, you get these, and this is going to be used as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out and stick this over my template after I've done my 90 degrees, like I say. So I'll have that absolutely 90 degrees, and then I will stick over the whole of it like that, so it covers over this little kind of like cut mark. And then I'm going to make use of probably this shape, which is going to go above the or maybe this one, which will go above the big window that I want to do. So I'll cut that out, stick that to some more of the card, and then glue that to the front of this shape, and we'll have a nice kind of like opening. And I will then probably make use of just draw a door on there, and maybe cut the windows out as well, and put a picture behind or something like that. So I want to have a big window at the front, 2 small ones at the top, and I can make use of these little kind of like shapes to do that. So I'll get that done. I'll bring you along when it's finished. I'll show you what it looks like, and tell you anything I've learned. But I'm very pleased to have remembered I've got this. I think it's going to be a nice little new technique, something I've not done very much of. So yeah, let's see how it goes. I've been pushing on a bit with this. As you can see, I've managed to cut out the front window. I am going to need to put something in behind, which I'll show you in a bit. But what I'm looking at now is the doorways and also the windows. So I cut that out, and I'm going to put this kind of architrave, 3D architrave on top, which is just another section of the same brickwork stuck to the same card. So I'll just glue that in place there. Not sure how I'm going to do the windows at the moment, or whether I might even just put a sign up there and not do windows. But that's for next up. What I am going to do is make use of the doorways that are also on another sheet. I'm using a lot of scale scenes for this build, and I think I'm just going to get one of these single green doors and stick that on just over here. So you'll have the bay window there and a doorway into the restaurant here. And maybe I'll have a sign above there, and I think that might leave it like that. I've also been printing out some more miniatures. I've nearly got everything I need for the scene in front. So once I've stuck that on and stuck the door on and worked out how I'm going to do the behind, which I have got some ideas, but yeah, I'll see. Then I will stick it all onto this base and then start building up the rest of the terrain. So I need to put the cobblestones down and what have you. So my idea with the inside of the building is I'm going to put something across the back here. So as you see, I've got 2 90-degree supports there. I might put another couple in there. And then I'm going to print something out and have it so that it kind of has a little bit of 3D in it. So when you look, you can see kind of past here and past there. It's going to be a bit close. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be better than nothing. And I think it'll be quite a nice little experiment. I'm learning so much doing this. I've made mistakes. I can tell you one now. I shouldn't have done it like this. I should have planned more what my fascia was going to be like, prepared the back without having stuck the bricks on, and then done everything like properly. But you live and learn, and so this is where I'm at. The other thing is I had this fixed idea of having these fascias, and now I'm thinking I should actually have put a bit of an awning, but we're not going to have an awning. That's just how it is. So what I'm going to do is glue that on. I'm going to then work out my scene behind, print that out and glue that on, and I'm going to cut out and glue on the door now. And I'll come back for the next stage, which is going to be drawing on where this fascia is going to be, and then starting to work actually on the cobblestones, because I'm going to do that before I stick this in place. So yeah, good progress, pretty pleased. Mistakes being made. Mistakes are always made. I always make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Okay, the cafe is looking really nice, and I've printed out a sign: Rosie's Cafe and Bakery. There we are. So I'm going to stick that on. Just found that on the internet. What I'm going to do now is roll out some air dry clay on my little chopping board here, and use the 15mm cobblestone for the texture, and then stick that down to my tile. So I have one of Green Stuff World's mega plane rollers. Great sound it makes when it comes out of the roller. So what you do is you pretend you're a baker. Whenever I do this I always think, oh, I could never be a baker. But I'm now doing something for a cafe, so that's kind of on topic, isn't it? So you make it thin. I don't add anything to air dry clay. I don't put PVA in it or anything like people say. You don't need to. Certainly, if you're experiencing air dry clay cracking, the reason is it's not thin enough. You're doing it too thick, so it's not drying evenly, and therefore it cracks. If you do it at the nice and thin like that, then it will not crack. So once you've got yourself a happy kind of quantity, and that'll be about right because it will extend a little bit further even more, then you come along and you press down evenly and firmly across the whole thing. And again, I'm doing this with no guide on the roller deliberately because I want it to be thin. Maybe if you're using green stuff, you can get away without, you can get away with thicker, but certainly I would always say you want to be quite thin with air dry clay. And then very carefully lift it. And then you can put it on top of your piece, and as you can see we've got enough. We've got a nice bit of overlap as well. Now the thing to do now is to get some PVA glue, because, and I say this over and over again as well in my videos, you need to remember that on its own the clay is not sticky. It will basically fall off. It will dry on that and then won't adhere. So so get yourself some PVA glue. And spread that around with a brush. Again, nice and thin. I might even have too much PVA here, but I can always take it off with my brush. Nice and thin. There we are. And then once you've got a nice thin bit of PVA, layer of PVA, you can come along and you can put your air dry clay down on it. Now, I know that back here is where the bakery is going to go, so I'm not too worried so much about the accuracy of that, but I do want to not press too much down and to cause too much damage to the texture at the front. So with that down now, that will now dry on nicely, and that PVA will secure it really well. What we're going to do is we're going to turn it over and we're going to trim off the excess. And this is a little bit more complex in this build because obviously it's a funky shape. So being very careful to not press down hard, just very light pressure on top of the on the wood here, just to make sure it doesn't move. And using, this is a specific tool for sculpting with air dry clay, so it cuts through it very nicely. I'm just running it around very gently, making sure that I'm following the edge of the contours, and it will just peel off, you see. So let's get this last side done. Pretty happy with that. Now I might need to come along and touch up the edges a little bit, just so that it retains its ability to be tessellated, but you can do that now really nicely, just coming along with the tool. Most places it's pretty good, got places a bit ragged, just tidy those up, make sure it's not too hanging over the edge, and then we'll let that dry. That will go off overnight, and then I can come back tomorrow and start painting it. So there we are. That was an in-depth view of how I'm going to go about doing how I go about doing my air dry clay. I see a lot of different comments and people going, oh, you add this and you do that and do the other. If you keep your air dry clay thin, very, very thin, and you're very careful with it like that, you will not have cracking. So I'll bring you back when that's gone off, and we'll get to the next stage. But for now, I'm going to glue on Rosie's cafe and bakery sign, and I'm still working out how I'm going to do the inside of the cafe. And also, actually, let me just bring these over. I have, here is a chair and two of the patrons. They've just been PVA'd down to tongue depressors, so I can paint them this evening. Here is the chairs, and here are the tables. So this is the furniture which is going to go on the square in front. So they're printed out. They've done really nicely. I've got 2 people here, three people here to sit on chairs. I've got Rosie, the waitress. I've tried to print out a girl, but they printed really well apart from one of the supports went wrong. So I'm hoping I might be able to save her. And then a couple of chairs, a couple of tables and 8 chairs. So there'll be a really nice looking little layout in front of Rosie's bakery. So these will be being painted, starting painting tonight. So there we are. Onwards. This is set up for a couple of days because I've been busy. So what I'm now going to do is use some of my terrain paint, which is nice and watered down and also mixed with PVA, just to paint over the top. It's probably going to take a couple of coats. You can see that the red of the air dry clay does like to try to come through, but this will act as a sealant as well as adding a little bit of kind of colour to the depths. And then what I can do is I can come along, do a couple of coats of this, because it dries quite fast, and then start to bring up the greys, because this is a traditional grey stone floor. So yes, I'm just going to paint this over. It'll take a couple of coats at least, and then when that's done, I'll bring you back when I've got a good nice base coat down and show you how I'm going to take that up, which is just going to be with dry brushing obviously. But yeah, that's cool. There we are. So I'll get that done over today in a couple of minutes I have through the way, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to do the next step. I've just totally accidentally, and it's not really coming out on the camera unfortunately, but I've accidentally come up with a really nice result. Oh, that's a bit better if I lift it. So what I did was I put on another coat of the black wash and just didn't like it, so I started wiping it off just with a kitchen towel, which you can see here covered in black paint, and it's turned out to look like really nice dirty cobbles, which is basically what I was wanting. So there we are, total accident, but I'm going to let that dry now, so it looks like when it's all gone off, but I think I'm pretty happy with that. Next thing I want to do on this is put the window in place, and I've come up with an idea about how to do behind the window as well, which if it works I'll show you, but in this case I want to try it before I show you. So I save all of my clear plastic, or not all of it, but I fill up a drawer and then only recycle what won't now fit in it, and so what I will do is I will cut out some clear plastic and then stick it in across behind. So it'll just be a case of getting a knife, cutting it out. It doesn't even need to be all that neat, because then I can just stick it down in place, and then that will be a nice sheet of glass across the front. So I'll get that done, show you what it looks like, but it's a really simple technique. Probably use PVA or super glue to glue it in place, and then I'm going to try and do the behind the window shot. The miniatures are primed and ready to be painted. I was not feeling great yesterday, so I didn't do any painting yesterday evening, but I'll try and get them done today, and then I can continue dressing the set, because I've got to finish it this week, so I need to get a crack on. So here we are. Here we have the courtyard with the serendipitous, awesome coloration. I was going to do it black and grey, but no, I think that looks even better. Sooty with a little bit of red showing through, it's perfect. And I've got the miniatures painted up. You can see I've put a couple on. There's the waitress. Here's someone sitting down. Some guy sitting on a pile of boxes and a chair and a table. And I've got a bunch more chairs, table, and people here. And my initial idea was that I was going to glue all this down and stick it all in place and have it there. And then I've realised just now, actually, just a few minutes ago, I've realised, hang on a minute, that is not going to be playable. Because you might not want people in the village square if you've got tanks rumbling through and you're using it for terrain. So I changed my mind, as I do, and what I'm going to do, I'm not going to waste anything, so I'll keep this. This is still going to be good. I'm going to get another of these little towel pieces, and I'm going to use the same roller and do the same thing. So I'm going to put air dry clay and roller it on there. However, what I will do is I will get myself a circle cutter, and I will cut out some circles, which will then be able to have the miniature stuck on. So if I cut out circles from this and then I also roll out more air dry clay and cut circles from that, I can have multiple arrangements of tables or no tables or empty tables or populated tables, whatever I want, and it'll be much more flexible and it'll actually be gameable. So that's what I'm going to do. So I will get back to the stage where I've got my air dry clay rollering, and I'll show you how I'm going to go about cutting out, and then we'll crack on. And I think that's going to work really nicely. And this can just be courtyard in front of the courtyard or whatever, or can be used as other scatter terrain. As I say, I'm going to be trying to build up this this World War II terrain in 20mm 176-ish through these encounter terrain challenges in the oncoming days, oncoming months even. So yeah, that's the thing. Bit of a change of mind, but I do think it's going to work a lot better. So yeah, I'll get stuck into that now. Right then, we've rolled out the new air dry clay, and you can see I've done more than I need to do for just this base. So what I'll do, probably turn the camera off again when I've done this, when I'm doing this, is I'll set that down over the top of the base and then cut it out like I did before, as you've already seen. So I'll get that done and then bring you back for the next and final step, which involves these bases and this cardboard. So let me just get this cut out. So there we are, that's done. So what we're going to do, and what I've decided to do, is I'm going to take two big circles and a little circle out. And actually I might change my mind very briefly, because I might use these. No, they're going to be too small. Yeah, so I'm going to stick with the bases, with the standard bases. So that's a cavalry base. That's a normal base. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to cut out off of this off of the tile. So let me zoom that a little bit so you can see. So we'll hold it down and very carefully cut around the edge. And then even more carefully attempt to lift it. This is where it could go wrong. But if it does go wrong, and if you're following along, this goes wrong, don't panic, because you've got yourself, and it worked, hey, you've got yourself a template, so you can easily cut out the same shape. So now that template, let me move the camera again. There we are. So now that template is going to be very carefully, and I dropped it while I was moving the camera, but very carefully put down onto this cardboard. Now this is just a cereal packet that I've cut up, and what I've done is I've put a thin coat of PVA across one side. So when that goes off, it'll be dried to the cardboard, and I can take a sharp knife and cut around it. So what I'm now going to do, and I'll not just repeat the process on camera lots of times, but I've got all the other air dry clay here. So what I'm now going to do is cut out another circle from here there, and then another smaller circle from here, and then as many as I can out of this, and I may roll some more up, but I'm going to have quite a lot of circles and quite a lot of small and big circles. Then I've got all sorts of options and all sorts of variety that I can do, and I can put in front of my cafe, and that is going to work really nicely. So yeah, I'll get that done. Get them painted in exactly the same way, black wash, done, and I'll bring you back on this stage when I'm starting to actually arrange what's going to go on these tiles. But I better get going because I don't want this to go off and dry. So yeah, I'm very pleased I had this idea. Thinking while you're driving is sometimes successful, even though Angela always panics when I say, oh, I was driving and I had a thought. Sometimes it's a good thought. So that worked. I've cut out the first of the little circles, and it slots in very nicely. Now it is quite tight. Might actually be too accurately cut. I need to use a knife to flick it out, but that also just mean it's going to be quite secure. So how I did that was I took my sharp knife here, a hobby knife, cut round basically like that, and then when I had that a rough cut all the way around, I then did a kind of sawing motion like this to actually cut through very gently through the cardboard. So it takes a little bit of time, but it's very easy to do. So just sit down, chill out, watch TV or whatever while you're doing this, yeah, then you've got your blanks that are going to go in here. So I'll get the rest of these cut out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my miniatures, and I'm going to have a couple of these that are just blank, well two large and a small that are just blank, obviously, so that I can have the entire thing done. But then I have 4 large and 2 small that I can put different arrangements. So maybe on one of them I'll have an empty table, on another one I'll have the table with people sitting on, I'll have the waitress on one of them, And yeah, I think that will look really nice. So once I've cut all these out, I'll bring you along and we'll go through assembling the options together. Of course, if I find that I need more of these, it's super easy for me to make them, and I'll make some more. So I've done some arranging. I've also glued the 2 sitting people to 2 chairs, and that's now done. And I've worked out roughly where I want things to go. And yeah, I think I'm going to do this off camera because this is very, very fiddly indeed. But what we're going to end up with is one circle with the dude sitting on the chest, and one with the dude sitting on the pile of weapons. We're going to have an arrangement of with a table and 4 chairs with no one sat at it, and then this one here, the table, 4 chairs with people sat on it, and then the waitress stood next to it. So I'm going to get those glued together. That will leave me with 2 additional ones, and you'll have to wait to see what I'm going to put on those because yeah, they're currently being painted up now. So what now I'm going to do is we're going to have a look at putting the kind of like background inside the cafe. And I've no idea if this is going to work, as I often say, but I'm going to give it a go. So what I've got is I've got some white card. I don't know whether this is going to be the right thing. It's a bit shiny. I'm a bit worried that it might not work. Oh dear. What I've done is I have pulled together 4 different colours of paints, which you can see just here. And I'm going to do kind of like a smeary painting of them. That's my idea. So I'll have a square, and I'll do yellowy toward the top and reddy towards the bottom, and a bit of blue and a bit of a mix in the middle, just so that it looks like maybe like a water effect or something like that. I might try to do some streaking on it, and then I will stick it in a curve here. So that's the idea. So I will get my camera running and put some music on while I'm doing this, and we'll see whether it works or not, because I really don't know whether it's going to work. We shall see. Oh, I think that looks quite nice. It's a bit stark, but I think it's going to be okay. It certainly makes it look very welcoming. So how I'm going to attach this, as I've said, is it's going to be taped in a curve so that it kind of covers the whole of the view, so you can't see past it either way, and also so it has some depth. So that's the idea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of sellotape. I'm going to stick one side down and then bend it up and stick the other side down and hope that that works. So let's see. Cue sellotape sounds. Oh, there we are. That was a little bit fiddly, but that's basically what I wanted. Fantastic. This isn't quite the last step because I've realised that I still need to do the roof, which won't take very long. And also I've got a couple more bits and pieces to do for different items that might be going on the courtyard, which I've hinted at. They're currently being painted. But I am going to now stick this in place because I think I'm happy with how it is, and I think that this is the time to do so. So just to run a bead of PVA along the edge, and then what I'll do is I'll get some of my 90-degree things and I will make sure it's held up in place and held upright and doesn't get knocked until it dries. So we just set that in like so. Don't worry too much about PVA there because I'm going to want to put some detritus and stuff there. But there we are. We have Rosie's Cafe and Bakery with its little courtyard in front. I'm so pleased. So here are the final little elements for the scatter that is going to be optional on the base. These were 2, I was planning on having these as whole miniatures, and unfortunately we had a very, very brief power cut just before they finished printing, and so I ended up with some failed prints. Rather than throw them away and waste them, I've decided I'm going to make some more use of this, which is the filler material that I got from Travis at Tabletop CP. Almost forgot the name of the channel. And I'm going to do them as basically exploded. So as simple as that. What I might do is spray some black at the bottom of this, so I might quickly go and do that, and then I will glue this onto this base. I'm going to put something underneath it so that it's at a slight angle, and then I will have smoke coming from the front, and it'll be as simple as that. It will look like a blown up burning staff car, and I've got a German one and I've got a British American one, Allies one. So yeah, that's the last of the scatter terrain. The one thing I've noticed that I made a little bit of a mistake, and regular viewers will know that I'm often regularly making mistakes, is that you can actually see in the window that there's cobblestones inside, which isn't correct. And unfortunately I've stuck this down, so fixing this is going to be a real pain. I have a couple of options to how to fix this, which I'm currently working through in my head, and I have a little bit of time left. I'm not actually running out of time, so I have time to think this through. But one of my ideas is to shove something down from the top inside, maybe even some more of the air dry clay, but I'm not sure that'll work because it will still be red and look a bit odd, but at least it wouldn't be the texture of the cobblestones, and that will also help to fill up the little hole that you can see as well. So that's one idea. Another idea I've got is some balsa wood, cut to shape and push that in. That's more likely to break and cause more problems. So anyway, there's a couple of issues with that. And once I've done that, then I will finish off and do the roof, and that is the final thing. So anyway, there we are. So I'm going to go and do a little bit of spray painting on this to make this not quite so white, and then glue these on at an angle, as I say, like that. This one's already at an angle, so I don't need to, but this one I want to prop up a little bit. And then, yeah, just cover in smoke, and we've got ourselves some destroyed vehicle markers. So I'm going to try and fix this gap at the back of, or inside the cafe now. And what I've done is I've gone along and I've drawn around this, but it's on the outside obviously. So I've drawn around this this shape here, but it is on the outside, just onto this little scrap piece of balsa. And so now I'm going to cut that out and attempt to shove it down inside. This is far from a scientific process, and it may not work, but since when I've ever let that put me off. So let's see. It could even totally backfire and break everything. So I need to get myself something a bit thinner than that. Let's see if I can encourage it into place. There we are. Right, there we are. So, better than it was. What I now probably need to do is just a little bit of a push it back maybe, and a little bit of glue, and that should, it's not really very great to be honest, but it's better than it was. I think a little bit of glue and that'll be fine. So I can put some glue in from the underside, lift it up, slot some glue in, and then put it into place. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to really, let me see if I can zoom in and show that. Yeah, I can, good, there we are. So that's better than it was. You can't see, it looks like a wooden floor, which is what we want, yeah, obviously you can't see the cobbles anymore. So actually, yeah, that's turned out okay. So I'll glue that in place, and then we're going to look at the roof, and then we are done. For the roof, I'm going to make use of this card, same stuff as I used for the back of inside the building, so for the kind of like texture bit or the coloured bit. And I'm going to make this 10 centimetres wide because I don't want it to overhang, but I'm going to make it 10 centimetres wide, and I'm not sure how high at the moment, so I'm just going to go probably higher than I need to, so wider than I need to. And I'm going to make use of the tiles that I buy from Sarissa. So this is not going to be scratch built, but they're Sarissa's tiles, and I'll probably put 2 or 3 or maybe just 2 rows across there, paint them, and then glue it in place, and then it'll be done. So I'll cut this out and then get the tiles and show you how these work, and then get them painted and glued in place. It's going to look nice. So this is the like the tiles or the roofing, whatever. They come in sheets like this. You can see I've used quite a lot of these. You just cut them out, cut them to size, and glue them on with PVA. And as you can see, I'm just clamping this down so it doesn't warp. So, oh, knock. So what we do is, first of all, you put a bead of PVA, which is where your initial sticking is going to go. And then you apply a bead for every additional row or course or whatever you want to call it. So we will put some PVA across along here, because obviously they overlap, and knowing what you know about roofs, you want them to overlap, so you want to start at the bottom and not at the top. Otherwise it will look a bit odd, because it will look like it's going to leak, because water runs down. Okay, that way, there we are. Water runs down, doesn't it? So what I'll do is I'll put that there, and I'll line up so that the little like shapes are over the edge, and the straight between the shapes is perpendicular or completely aligned with the bottom of the sheet. So then, just with a normal hobby knife, you can come along and you can snip out another row. So they are just a little bit there, a little nick there, and then there is actually a little nick in the middle as well. So that will now just pop out. There we are. And what we'll do is we will overlap 50-50. Now the really cool thing about these is that they actually come with an overlap 50-50. So what we can do is we can mark up where we're going to cut. So we're going to cut there. And that is our length that we need. So we'll get a little bit more PVA. Run it over the top of the one that we've already laid down, because we're going to glue this one on top of that. And a little bit just past it, because we're going to also glue it down a little bit onto the cardboard. It's going to be overlapping. And there we have two courses. So I will continue doing that. That's how it looks. I will continue doing that and get maybe another 2 courses I think done, and then that will be a really good amount of roof for me to paint up and then attach. So when I've got it all done, I'll show you how I'm going to paint it, and then we'll stick it in place. These have dried nicely, not taken very long at all. PVA is cool. So I've got this brick red that I really like, that I'm going to use for the towels. I know a lot of people do blue towels, but this is more traditional. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint these towels red, just as simple as that, and they'll dry quite quickly. But I will let them dry before I cut them out, because I don't want to put fingerprints all over them. But I've double checked, I've offered it up against the model. And they are going to be absolutely fine. One thing to remember, particularly if you're going to be photographing from different angles, is to get right in underneath, get the fronts of all of the tiles, otherwise you'll be annoyed because it won't look nice from different angles. So yeah, that's that. So just paint the whole lot all the way around. There we are. Right, I'll let that dry, it won't take very long, and then we'll fit it on, stick it on, and then I think pretty much this build is done, which is really, really awesome. These are dry. So what I'm now going to do is cut them out and stick them on. And I thought I'd film this, which is a bit of a dry filming thing, just to show that you do use the right tool for the right job. Don't get stuck just using one tool because you like it. Now everyone knows I like to use my knife to cut things out, and I am going to use my knife to cut the top of this because that's going to be the best thing to use for that. However, if you're cutting out through these tiles, they are quite thick, so what you want to do really is come along with your scissors, and I've got these really nice good scissors that I use. I got them in Belgium actually when I was working there, and they are much better for cutting through really thick things like that than a knife, which will just take ages and you might cut yourself. So there we are. So that's them cut out. I will come along and finish off the top edge with the same brick colour. But for now what we're going to do is going to work out how am I going to stick this on here. And I do have an idea, so I will gather my stuff together and show you. So this is where a little bit of planning ahead would help me. So what I need to do is I need to have an angle which I can rest this roof against. And what I've done here is I've cut out a little template which is going to help me to do that. This template is at the correct angle to sit here and have the roof sit on top of and meet the back, like at the back of the tile. But if I'd have thought about it, I could have cut this first shape with the angle on it already, and then it would have been fine. But I didn't, and so I didn't think, so I didn't do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this template. Oh, drop it there. I'm going to cut out 2 of them with a bit of a tab underneath at the bottom, so they can be glued on the inside of this. and then when they're secure I'll be able to stick this to those uprights and it will be a really, really nice angle. So I will get that done and show you what it looks like when I'm gluing them in place, and then we really are done. I wish I'd thought of this. It would have been much easier if these supports had been part of the structure and not having to be glued on, but never mind, you live and learn. So this is a place for super glue, I think. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of super glue on the side of the support. If my super glue will work, there it is. And one of the reasons I'm using super glue is not necessarily just to be lazy because it goes off quick, but it also is less likely to warp this balsa wood as opposed to a water-based, which is more likely to warp. So let's just make sure that gets in the right place, and as you can see that is secure pretty much immediately. Make sure I put my glue on the correct side of this other side, and also make sure I get that in the right place. And then, if my head didn't get in the way, if it did, I have huge apologies. And then what we'll do is we can run a bead of super glue down here. These super glue pens are superb. I've gone a little bit nuts and bought lots and lots and lots of them, because they're so much better than the tubes. And now we just need to get this equal and even. There we are. We have a roof. Well then, it's a long time since I started editing this video, and it was just a lot of fun just then to pick this up and finish it off so I can get it up and published and remember the build. And that's just a big pleasure for me because, yeah, Rosie's Cafe, what a lovely thing. Has two meanings for me, one of which obviously is Rosie, but also I used to have a regular breakfast at a cafe in Blackpool called Rosie's, and that was a happy time in my life, and remembered with much joy. I used to go there every week. It was really good fun. So I hope you enjoyed the build. Lots of cool little techniques in there, really nice result and a lot of fun, and it sits on my shelf waiting for me to ever eventually play a Chain of Command. Who knows, maybe I will one day, but either way it was a fun build and it's good to get this video edited and published, and so you can have a look and enjoy it. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, please do stay healthy, stay safe and stay well.